Hello everyone, Sableye here and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to use Porygon2 in the VGC metagame. But first off, please let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on whether or not Porygon2 is a duck. Because in my opinion, it's most certainly a duck. But that's enough nonsense for now. Let's jump into things here. We start off immediately. Porygon2, since it is not fully evolved, able to hold that Eviolite, boosting those defenses by 1.5 times each, and you immediately go over to the stats and say, wow, this is actually a very bulky piece, and that is exactly what Porygon2 is going to be. It is versatile, it is bulky, and it's incredible speed control for your team. Those are the three things you have with Porygon2. And that's what makes it incredibly strong. Because 85, 90, 90, 90, 85, 90, 95 is incredibly strong, especially when you pair that with the Eviolite. You can almost get away with that without the Eviolite, but you have it, so why not utilize it? Just not dying is incredible. You also then have three really good abilities. Analytic is probably going to be seen a lot less. I'm not a huge fan of Analytic. We're not going to be talking about that all that much. Just because I feel like you're going to be setting Trick Room. If you're moving last, you're setting Trick Room, and then when Trick Room's up, you're probably going to be moving before a lot of the pieces anyway, so Analytic loses a fair chunk of value. Whereas Trace and Download are both incredibly strong options. Trace is really cool because you get to trace your opponent's ability. So this could be used to maybe trace and Intimidate. Maybe you trace Prankster. Maybe you trace Toxic Debris. There is so many different abilities you can trace right here. And it's incredible. Maybe I'm playing like a Rhyperior and I trace Solid Rock. You know, there's so much upside to Porygon 2 with the ability to trace something. It is incredible. Like maybe I'm just gonna trace Good as Gold from the Goldango, and now all of a sudden my Porygon 2 cannot get taunted. Right? There's a lot of options with Trace, strong upside, but it can get a little bit less consistent than Download. Because with Download, you're capable of getting that immediate boost, right? Back in the day, you used to be able to have return on Porygon 2, and you could go attack boosting or special attack boosting, right? And like, it really wouldn't matter because like you get the advantage of it. But that's probably not going to happen too much nowadays. You don't get return anymore, so you're probably going to be relying on getting that special attack boost. And there is a fairly good chunk of options for you to get that in this metagame, mainly because the entire format is physically offensive, or for the most part, it's physically offensive. So if people are trying to calc and live those physical hits, their special defense is going to be weaker, and Download is going to capitalize off that more often than not. So Download is probably the little bit more consistency if you're looking at an ability, but Trace, in my opinion, has a tad bit more upside. In terms of attacks, though, when I said versatility, I absolutely meant versatility. You get Thunderbolt, you get Ice Beam, you get Shadow Ball, you get, if I could type. Typing is not my strong suit, guys, okay? I can play VGC, but I cannot type. Besides the point, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, you get all kinds of stuff. Icy Wind if you wanted to, Foul Play if you wanted to. Those are a little bit more niche, right? You get Tera Blast now. Something else I want to talk about is also the ability to have Tri-Attack as well. So there's tons of options, tons of moves. And did I forget to mention you get Recover to heal your bulky self up, and then you also get to set Trick Room if you wanted that form of speed control, which is what you're going to see more often than not. Like I said, the Pokemon, the amount of moves this thing gets in general, they all can do something for this piece, and it is incredibly strong and versatile, especially because of that, because you can kind of throw it on a team and, you know, cater it towards that team, and that just feels like incredibly strong with Porygon 2. So we'll jump into set 1, but keep in mind, guys, when I'm talking about these sets, almost all of them are actually interchangeable. You can cycle in an attack that you like on one set in for another set. There is tons of options when it comes to this specifically, right? And to start off, I really wanted to start off with the Tera Blast option. And I'm going to talk about this for a little bit because Tera Blast is not the most consistent normal move that Porygon 2 has access to. That most consistent move would be Tri-Attack, right? And with that Tri-Attack, what are you doing? You are basically saying, I have the same base power as a Tera Blast, and it is Stab if I'm not Terra'd, and I am getting a 20% chance to burn, freeze, or paralyze the target. And that is incredible. You are asking the RNG to be in your favor without a real drawback, right? With Bleak Wind Storm, you need to hit, you can always miss Bleak Wind Storm, but the upside is you can get the speed drop, right? So the RNG will eventually even out. Whereas with Tri Attack, I am swinging RNG in my favor. This becomes incredibly, incredibly strong, right? Especially with the length of time Porygon2 ends up on the field for. Because, oh, you want to switch in to try and cycle it around? Okay, Tri Attack, boom, you're paralyzed now. Or, oh, boom, maybe you're frozen now, right? The amount of RNG that can come into your favor by running Tri Attack is incredibly, incredibly strong. However, I wanted to talk about Tera Blast because I think it is an incredibly cool option as well. Because now Porygon2 is used to having that recover trick room. These two probably aren't going to move. They're on 99% of Porygon 2s unless there's like some out there spread that you've somehow managed to come up with, which is perfectly fine. But more often than not, these are the two moves you're always going to see. I wanted to talk about Tera Blast because that normally only leaves you 2 attacking moves. So you get maybe Thunderbolt or Ice Beam, normal move plus Shadow Ball. There's a lot of, you can kind of just pick the coverage you need for your team, right? But Tera Blast allows me to, in theory, have 3 attacks, right? Because now I have a normal type move. Now I have a Shadow Ball, a Ghost type move. And now I also, if I Tera, I can have that Fairy type move to capitalize in front of those Dragon types, to capitalize in front of those Dragon Tera types. There's a lot of options with Tera Blast, and I really did want to test it out because I'm very curious as to how it's going to work. So I wanted to bring it up here, whether or not it's the most consistent option, because you're probably not going super offensive with your Porygon 2, right? Like, yes, you get the download and the special attack boost, which is why I have download over Trace on this set specifically, because if I am going Tera Blast, Shadow Ball, with Tera Blast, I want to have that ability to, if I need to go on the offense, like if the opportunity presents itself and I get to that +1 special attack and I think that I can just drop something, I want to have that option. I have 3 attacks, 2 of which are being stabbed, are stab, right? And because of that, it's the ability, you know, it's that ability to all of a sudden turn into that offensive piece. Because we don't talk about it too much, but special attack is somehow Porygon 2's highest attack stat, or highest stat in general. And it's like, huh? Like that just shouldn't happen when you go back and think about it. Because this piece is incredibly, incredibly bulky. Normally on these bulky pieces, you expect like the defenses to be the highest stat or the HP to be the highest stat. But no, on this Porygon 2, it is indeed that special attack, right? It gets 90% of its bulk, or well, I shouldn't say 90. It gets a good chunk of its bulk from the Eviolite, right? And when I said it was versatile, I legitimately meant it was versatile. Like, this spread here is meant to just live things, right? And that's all you really need to do. Similar to that Incineroar I talked about in a previous video, I can calc to live what my team needs this piece to live, and that is probably going to be a good spread, right? And we'll look at the spread too in a second, but I want to fast forward. Look, like you have this one, it's just all defensive bulk, right? Whereas this one's a little bit more balanced in the bulk, but you can do what you need to do with this Porygon 2. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about too many benchmarks with these calcs because that's exactly the concept that I'm looking for, is I want to say you can EV to live whatever you realistically want to live going forward with this piece, and it's going to be strong, right? In this case, I wanted to live close combats. I wanted to live drain punches from Iron Hands pretty consistently, right? I do live close combat from Adamant Urshifu. I just sit there and eat it. They can't kill me with a one-shot. And then maybe I have a Thunderbolt and I one-shot them back. I do personally like Thunderbolt, Ice Beam as my coverage more often than not. Like if I'm just going to throw a P2 on a team, I'm normally starting with Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, just because they're so consistent and so strong over the years. And they kind of just cover everything you want it to. Tera Blast, Shadow Ball, like I said, Tri Attack, all really strong options. But like I said at the beginning of these sets when I was introducing them, you can interchange these sets, you know? And that's kind of what I liked. I put 60 in special attack. This could realistically go down to 4, could go down to 0. I like having an ability to feel like I can kind of do damage, especially on a set where there's download involved. Because I can download, like I said, and I get that +1. All of a sudden, I'm doing damage. Like, +1 P2 does damage, right? You can't, like, just brush it off and say, oh, P2 is not an offensive piece. Because it can very easily become that offensive piece when you need it, right? And I think something along these lines is pretty consistent, right? Hit the defensive calcs you want to live, put some in special attack to capitalize on a potential download boost. And speed, once again, this is entirely up in the air. You'll see on set 2 that I actually have min speed on Porygon. Here I'm just normal. I just left it as 4. I didn't really want to go min speed. Personally, I do like having a little bit of speed on my Porygon because sometimes you don't get the Trick Room up. and you just want to launch an attack off. Like maybe I'm in front of an Iron Hands and I have 2 HP left, right? And I want to be able to pick off something before that Iron Hands Drain Punch kills me. Or maybe I want to recover before the Drain Punch comes out and connects into me, right? Obviously, that's the same. You can say the same thing where it's better to be slow in that case, because in Trick Room, the Iron Hands would kill off that 2 HP Mon. But so to speak, there's plus and minuses to both sides of the sword. But I do like having that kind of neutral speed. But once again, it's interchangeable. You can find what fits your team the best. Maybe you have Tailwind. Maybe you want to go up to like an 85 speed to outpace like Chi Yu in Tailwind, which I don't recommend. But maybe if that's what your team needs, you can utilize and you can capitalize on that, right? You go down to this, you go up here somewhere, right? Maybe that works. I'm not saying that's a good set. I don't think you should be investing speed in Porygon. But I am saying there's so much versatility with this piece that you can kind of cater these spreads to do realistically whatever you need the team to do. And I think that's what makes this piece so good. We'll move on to set 2 really quickly because I wanted to talk about funny Tera type in Electric. Now, Porygon2 is known for having one weakness, and that is fighting. So you can switch the typing now, and you can keep your one weakness, but just make it ground instead. I personally do not like this as much, simply because I like having a defensive type that kind of flips the script on it a little bit, especially with those Urshifus trying to click close combat into me, right? Where I can just all of a sudden resist the CC. I make them think twice about clicking it, right? However, Electric I wanted to mention because it's kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny, you all of a sudden you still have one weakness, you send a Thunderbolt back out, now it's Tera boosted, stab Electric move, you know what I mean? There's a lot of options where that arises, and I could see it being funny. Now, do I think it's probably optimal? Absolutely not, but it is a niche, right? You have Tera Fairy, you can go Tera Ghost. There's a lot of options you can go with here. I mean, if you're really scared of like Flutter Mane Moonblast, maybe you can go Tera Steel. I don't like that one as much. But once again, with the Tera type, there's tons of room to play, and that's kind of what I'm trying to feature by showcasing Electric here. There is options here. I don't recommend it. I do like Fairy the most right now, but there is options here. And like I said before, I just went all bulk on this spread. You can realistically, maybe Tera Electric Thunderbolt is better on a download spread, right? Where you're actually going to get the attack, and now you're at +1, you can just send damage, right? So like I said, there's a bunch of interchangeability here, bunch of ways to give or take whether or not you want stuff from set 1, set 2, kind of fit your team, whatever it needs. And like I said here, I'm just living stuff. This is me saying the entire format is physical. I will hit my final bump in defense and dump some good HP, dump the rest in special defense, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to live most of these physical attacks, and I'm going to outbulk these physical attackers in an endgame, and I'm just going to win. Right? That is what this spread is basically saying. Obviously, there's no real specific calcs that I ran with it, because there's so many ways you can utilize P2 to be able to cater to your team. And I've said that like 16, 17 times by now. So it's probably getting pretty close to just wrapping up the video, right? But these are some decent benchmarks. This spread in particular, I've really enjoyed right now. I haven't really seen a reason to change it. So if you're just looking to test out P2, not sure what to do, I would take this one. It feels really strong to me. And then as you play with it, you kind of cater. You go, oh, I didn't live this hit. Can I fix that? Maybe you realize, oh, I only need to go up to like 188 to live something, right? Maybe you just make that change, And that's what I like about P2. You can say, I just need to live this one attack, or I need to do this, and that's going to cater to the rest of the team incredibly well. And that is exactly what you get from versatile bulk with speed control. This is exactly what this duck is. This is exactly how it's going to play. Tons of room into spreads. I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is the best spread in the world. I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is the best spread in the world, because chances are neither of these spreads are actually going to hold up as the metagame evolves. You're going to have to rework your Porygon spread. There is tons of options. Like I said, you can move that up slightly, move this down slightly. Just find the calcs that work for you, work for your team. And there's so much room to play. I did want to quickly talk about set 3. It's not really a set, but I wanted to make sure I discussed these 3 moves with you. Eerie Impulse kind of feels bad now. It normally sees play because there's big special attackers in formats, right? But as of late in these past few formats, they've all been pretty much so physical. So having Eerie Impulse, yeah, you're going to get that Flutter Mane every now and then, but I just can't see it working out too well, right? Just because you're not going to be clicking it as much, it's going to be a useless slot, especially when you have so much versatility in the moves that you want. I don't like having Eerie Impulse or subbing Eerie Impulse in for one of those options, but it is an option. Foul Play as well. Similar concept. Foul Play is really, really cool when you have those big physical attackers in formats, which is an option right now because you do have a big physical attacking format, but there's not a lot of setup going on, right? As much as I would like to say, hey, I'm going to spam Foul Play, it's not going to do that much. Like, it's going to get damage over time. It's pretty consistent over time, especially if you do want to run Trace. Trace and Foul Play is kind of a cool option, but it's not going to be that, yeah, Foul Play, I'm going to send it and I'm just going to win games, right? Whereas before, like, you could catch like a belly drum and you'd send a Foul Play into the next turn, it's just gone, you know? You're not going to get that anymore, but it's still a viable option. And then Icy Wind / Electro Web. It is Icy Wind over Electro Web every single time. And that is simply just because Electro Web can get ground types are immune to Electro Web, whereas Icy Wind, nothing is immune to Icy Wind, so you're always going to get the speed drop that you would want. But you don't need Icy Wind because, in my opinion, you're not outpacing the faster Tailwinds with this. You're not outpacing the faster Icy Winds with this or the faster Electro Webs. Your speed control on Porygon2, 9 times out of 10, if not 9.9 times out of 10, should be Trick Room. Right, and that's why all these sets I'm showing are showcasing Trick Room. Just this is the standard set on Porygon. You know, you get the 2 attacks that suit your team, that suit the coverage you need, and then you get Recover Trick Room. That is what we're gonna wrap things up with. That is the statement that we are ending this with. Right, you have Porygon2. You can go offensive. You can go defensive. You like being versatile. You like being able to live certain things that your team needs to cater to. And that is exactly how Porygon2 is going to function. It is an incredible utility piece, incredible speed control as well for a team without necessarily needing to be hard Trick Room, right? You can have that. I'm going to have Porygon2, a Trick Room sweeper, and then a fast team or a neutral team, right? You don't need to have that hard Trick Room mode, but Porygon2 can give you that speed control that wasn't there before. It matches up positively into Tornadus because if the Torn wants to stop your Trick Room, it has to either have Taunt, it has to click Taunt if it has it, and then if it's clicking Taunt, it's not clicking Tailwind, which you can capitalize in the slot that's beside Porygon2. Matches up favorably into a good chunk of the meta. It always has, and it probably will once again. Cater it to whatever your team needs. There's tons of leeway. If you're looking to just start with a spread, this is a fairly good spread to start with. But like I said, once you figure out what your team needs to cater to, I would adapt to that. But with that, I am going to stop rambling now. Thank you all so much for checking out the video. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and I do really appreciate it. But with that, like I said, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for checking out the video, and I'll catch you all in a future video.